Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the principal's office. This is actually also where we talk about leadership and we lead from a kingdom perspective. I am Jamal Maxsam. I am your host for this video podcast. And for those of you who are listening on the Clubhouse app audio, welcome to the space. Welcome to the room. Again, feel free to share this room in the hallway on other social media platforms. Let them know that you are here. Those of you who are watching me on the other streaming channels and watching the video, thank you so much for watching live as well as commenting in the comments. I'm the Igniter of Champion Leaders, and this is the day where we talk about leadership, and specifically today we're talking about how to lead from a kingdom perspective. And so I'm just going to remind you, for those watching on video, to like, comment, and share this video so that people who are connected to you can benefit from this content. And so let's get into it. And so right now, a lot of people really understand the necessity of change. They understand that things have shifted. There's no normal to go back to because it just isn't. A lot of people have tried and sought to go back to what they thought was a normal or what may seem comfortable to them, but there is no normal to return to. And to be honest, I don't really believe that there's a comfort zone for us to find ourselves in. We have to get used to this place of the unfamiliar and just be clear on our leadership assignment in the place of unfamiliar and allowing that to be familiar to us. The unfamiliar can become familiar as we are walking out our assignment as leaders. And I always talk about, as a leader, you should know your specific assignment. There shouldn't be a time where you are just leading and just saying, hey, I'm in this position because I wanted to get a new position, or I aspired to get an increased paycheck, or I wanted to have more say so. While nothing is necessarily wrong with that, but there's a greater assignment as a leader. And you have to be able to identify that. And so specifically, when we talk about leading change, I want you to really focus in on the fact that too often positive change doesn't last. A lot of times when people try initiate change or initiate change initiatives, it doesn't last because people will revert back to the familiar. They would, just like I was saying in this intro, people will go back to what they are used to or where they have left, even though they know things have to be different. Even though they recognize that things have to change, a lot of times people will rather stay in the familiar because they are used to it and they know what to expect, versus stepping into a place where things are unfamiliar and they don't know what to expect. And so sometimes when you are leading change, if you are not intentional, people will revert back, and then that change will be nothing more than a fad, where it's like you started something and then you have to start something else, then start something else, then start something else. And so what I'm talking about, and the keys that I'm going to give you right now, are keys that will help you have lasting change, meaning that when you put the effort, you put the work in, and you're intentional, what you do will last, and you won't have to keep revisiting it again unless you're just trying to, continue a process of taking it to the next level. Because one of the things I had an opportunity to do as a school principal is I was well known for leading change and accelerating school progress, as well as turning around a struggling school. When a school is struggling and not performing, or when a school needs to continue moving to the next level, it involves change. And so wherever you may be leading, because I know I have people who are in leadership that are not in a school that are watching, whether they are leading, in their coaching or consulting business or whatever the case may be. When you are leading, you have to recognize that change has a rhythm, and when you do it right, it should last, and you shouldn't have to keep revisiting that previous thing over and over. So here are the 5 keys that I'm going to give you really quick. Now, for those of you who are watching online, there's an opportunity for you to get live laser coaching and join in on a Q&A session if you join me on the Clubhouse app. So if you go to Clubhouse and join me in the Igniting Champion Leaders Club, you can join the room right now as it's going, because that's an opportunity to get strategy for your specific situation in real time without having to get on a consultation call with me. So take advantage of this complimentary time to get your questions answered. All right, so let's go into the first key. Number one, you need to know your DNA. So as a leader, you have a DNA or a specific leadership style. And I'm not talking about the leadership style of transformational leaders, servant leader, that kind of thing. Because those styles that people identify, I would call more as a strategy versus a style. Because when you are leading, you should be transformational, you should be visionary, you should be democratic, but there be times where you operate between those different so-called styles. And so that's why they are strategies. Because if you try to fit yourself into one of those alone, then you would not be open to allow yourself to function in those other areas. And sometimes you're going to have to make a decision as a leader, so you can't get input on every single decision. And see last week's broadcast where I talked about shared leadership, because there are things you want to consider, because shared leadership is more than just letting people have input, because that's not good if that's the only thing they're doing. So you have to know your leadership DNA, your leadership style, and your leadership assignment. Every time you lead, in every place you lead, there's a specific purpose and should be an assignment for you to lead. And that's going to help you function at your best as a leader. When I recognized that my assignment was to turn around struggling schools, I knew that I shouldn't go into schools that were already performing and didn't need turnaround. When I recognized too that I could accelerate a performing school, but they had to be within a certain point. If a school was already at the top, I could help them maintain, but I knew my greatest skill set, or I would say this, I was at my best and I was a greater asset when I was helping people get to where they need to be. And so that helped me hone my focus as to what I did within the school and the type of schools that I worked with. Not saying every school doesn't need to continuously improve, but what I'm saying is I knew my assignment, and that's how my strengths flourish, which is why I kept getting sent all over the place to turn around schools. So the first thing you need to do is to know your assignment so you can know how you will flourish as a leader and know your strengths. And you have to know your DNA. And so that was your first key. Your second one is this. You have to identify the one thing to change. Don't try to change multiple things at once. A lot of times when you step into places that need change, or when you're leading people through change, it's multi-layered, multifaceted, and a lot of components to it. And sometimes we try to do too much at once. So you want to pick the one thing that will have the most impact, that you can really hone in on, and make sure that your change is sustainable. Even if you're saying, oh, there are like 20 things that need to be fixed, especially in the school situation, you can go in and there's 20 things that need to be done. Or when you go in as a consultant, you can find 1,001 problems that need to be solved. But you need to solve the one that's going to have the greatest impact for the people you are serving through your leadership. And then the one that you are putting systems and processes in place to sustain the change, so it doesn't wane after you are finished the work. And so that's your second key. You want to try to find the one thing. So the first key was to know your DNA so you can identify your leadership style and assignment. And then the second thing was identify the one thing that you're going to change, not trying to solve every problem at once. Now here's your third key, your third piece of advice. Address the root and not the symptom. And that can be kind of challenging, because it may take a moment to really be able to tell what the root of the issue is. Sometimes the real root is so deep and so embedded, a lot of symptoms kind of cover it up, which is why you should never enter a place trying to initiate change right off at the beginning. you should always step in first and build one, relationship with the people, but two, really assess and get a sense of how things are working and what the root of the issue is. Because a lot of people address symptoms and don't address the root. And that's part of the reason why the problem comes back. And so you want to make sure that you are addressing the root of the issue so that that problem you won't have to deal with anymore. And you can move on to the next thing. And so the next one is this. You have to prepare to face challenges and be prepared to keep the momentum. And so that's your third key. You want to prepare to face challenges and prepare to keep the momentum. So as you're getting ready to initiate something, you want to first anticipate the challenges you're going to face and try to address them right at the beginning, but also create a predetermined response to any challenges that may come up during the process so that you can have a well thought out response versus being caught off guard and caught emotionally. And then you need to put a system and have part of your strategy. How are you going to maintain the momentum? How are you going to keep this going? Because a lot of times we think about things, or people think about things, and they think about it in the short term. They think, I'm getting it started. This is what I'm just doing for now. They don't think about something lasting a long time, which is why some leaders actually burn out, because they start something and then they recognize they have to do a lot in almost everything because they haven't created a team, and then they burn out because it's not sustainable. In order for something to be sustainable, you need to have a strategy to maintain the momentum, which means you will have to find those right people to share the leadership responsibility with, not just the input, but the responsibility, as well as the other two things that I said last week. They have to share in the responsibility, share in the execution, as well as the decision making for accomplishing or initiating the change. And then you can help get some of that weight off of you, which then distributes it evenly, and then you can keep it going. But there has to be a system, there has to be a process, there has to be a strategy, and the people you have in place have to be people who can embrace the vision, who can be strategic, make decisions, and are willing to take responsibility. This is why I said last week, a person that just wants to give input probably isn't the person that you want to really give a lot of input to, unless their role is to be a strategist. Because if they only can give input or only want to give input, then that still leaves the majority of the work on you. And then it also leaves people giving you more work than needed. And that's not cool. And so that was the next one. So we talked about knowing your DNA. We talked about how you need to be able to know your assignment by knowing your DNA. Then we said you need to identify the one thing you want to change, and don't try to change multiple. We said you need to address the root, not the symptom. You need to prepare to face challenges and prepare to keep the momentum. And then here's the fourth key. You want to use your leadership ability. Use your ability to influence others to accelerate your efforts. Now, let me be clear. A lot of times when we talk about acceleration, a lot of people automatically think about speed, going faster. And a lot of times people try to rush when we think about acceleration. There is a difference between urgency and rushing. You don't want to rush, even though you want to move swiftly and with urgency and intentionality. Now, when I'm talking about acceleration, I'm talking about swiftly with intentionality, but I'm also talking about knowing the pacing of change and being in rhythm with the pacing of change. Because if you try to do something too quick, the people will not have embraced it, and it won't be done to the level of excellence that you need. If you go too slow, then your change will be irrelevant because it won't meet the needs of the people you're serving. So you have to get into the pacing and rhythm of change, but to accelerate it, you want to make sure that you are keeping things moving. Acceleration, from in a basic scientific definition, talks about changing positions, but it also refers to not going back to the previous position. So when I say you need to accelerate your efforts through your leadership, you need to make sure that things continue to move without reverting backwards. And so you want to do that. That's the other key. You want to keep things moving, and it has to be through your leadership. There are things you can do as a leader to keep things moving, to keep people in the right position, and to empower and equip them to keep things moving. Okay, so that was the fourth key. Now, the fifth key may seem very simple, but it's profound. You need to have a plan. You need, and I call it a playbook. You need to have your playbook, because a lot of people initiate change and don't really have a playbook or a plan. They just come in and do what I call wrecking ball leadership. And, I got that name. Miley Cyrus, she had the song. She came in like a wrecking ball. Now, I don't really know the song that much. I just know the chorus. And some leaders come in like a wrecking ball. They walk up in the spot and they think, okay, all of this needs to change. And they start just trying to make change everywhere all at the same time. And what they end up doing is causing more damage than good. And so if you don't have a playbook, you run the risk of being that wrecking ball leader, where you come in thinking that you are making change and thinking that you're making progress, but you're actually damaging people and stuff. And so you don't want to damage people or damage stuff. You don't want to damage anyone, and you don't want to just break systems and disrupt and all of that, because being a disruptor is a now thing to be. And leadership will cause you to be a disruptor, but you want to do it intentionally and strategically and with a purpose. And so your fifth key is to have that playbook. And in that playbook, you should have things that we talked about from the first four keys. You should have how you're going to respond to challenges. You should have who is doing what as a leader that you shared leadership with. You should have how you're monitoring and tracking. And so there should be certain things in your playbook as you are facilitating and leading change. Because change has to become more than an idea. It has to become more than posters you put up. It has to become more than just the vision for it that you cast. It has to become a reality. And in order for it to be a reality, it has to have the posters. It has to be communicated as you cast vision. But you need to also have strategy. You need to have people in place. You need to have systems in place. And you need to have those other things that I talked about. So those are the 5 keys to lead change, because everybody wants change. Everybody know we need change. My school leader friends, I know all of you are like, yes, this coming school year, I'm going to make some change. Things are going to be different. These were the hardest 2 school years ever. True. But you want to make sure that you have these 5 keys so your change is sustainable and lasting, because you don't want to be talking about making change again the next year. So with that, I want to give you 2 opportunities for support. The first one is I want to let you know that the Leadership Accelerator is open and available for you to join. You can enroll now by going to jamalmaxsam.org/strategy session and getting on a brief call with me so you can get more information. Now, if you want more information specifically before the call, you can just go to jamalmaxsam.org/LA info and see everything that we cover in the Leadership Accelerator, because the Leadership Accelerator is all about helping you learn how to lead change, but also helping you to move positions in your leadership to increase your ability to influence and to overcome the challenges that come with leading, because leadership can be challenging, it can be draining, but it doesn't have to be miserable. I know a lot of leaders that are flat out miserable, and that doesn't have to be you. So you can check out this link to get some info, and then schedule a time with me so we can discuss your enrollment and get you into the Leadership Accelerator. Now for all of you watching online, that's it for this week. I want you to lead like a champion, and I want you to be successful. And wait a minute, there's one more, I want to say announcement, but for lack of a better term, announcement. I am doing a 3-day challenge at the end of the month on July 26th is when it starts. And it's going to be, yeah, July 26th is when we start. I had to verify that. It's going to be a 3-day challenge, and it's called Stop Using the Law of Attraction. In these leadership circles, we hear a lot of people saying, use the law of attraction, read these certain books in order to become better leaders, accomplish our goals. Now, I just gave you 5 keys to lead and change. You don't need to attract anything to do that. You want to be able to walk out your strategy, and you want to be able to lead from your place of faith, or from a place of faith. You guys know it's no secret. I teach people how to lead from a kingdom perspective, and I can tell you the law of attraction, while it may produce some results, you don't want the other stuff that comes along with it. So you definitely want to join that 3-day challenge and learn how to get and really how to receive everything that God has for you when you just follow his path for leading and follow his path in your leadership without having to try to attract. You don't have to attract what has already been given to you. So join me, jamalmaxsam.org/stop. 3-day challenge. I know I normally do 5-day challenges, but this is a 3-day challenge. It's gonna be very straight and to the point and succinct. Every day there'll be action steps for you to take. And so you don't want to miss it, because you don't want to get caught up into doing something that's going to impact you as a leader and then negatively impact those you're leading and prevent you from leading change. So that's 2 opportunities to be ignited coming up right now. The 3-day challenge, as well as the leadership accelerator. Whichever one you feel is the right space for you, you want to get in it so you can get your leadership ignited, and so you can continue to be the champion leader that you've been called to be. All right, so that's it for this week. I will see you tomorrow on the Dismantling Spiritualism podcast, where we talk about false signs and deceptive wonders. But if you're not into that, that's okay. Just join me next week then, right here in the principal's office, where we talk about leadership. And now remember, I always want you to lead like a champion, and I want you to be successful. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.